Sally Magee with Magee Coaching Solutions, and your next lesson on this alcohol-free challenge. So today's lesson is all about our thoughts and our thought processes and how those get integrated into habit change. So we're going to take a look at the habit change model, our thought processes, and give you some food for thought as to what might be coming next once you reach the tail end, because we're kind of at that tail end of the program here. I want to start with a reminder of this concept that we covered, I think, briefly in a previous lesson, which mentioned the term cognitive dissonance. And that's where you both want something but don't want something at the same time. And that can cause a lot of discomfort and confusion in your brain. So I want to start with that today, and then we'll carry on. So cognitive dissonance is around how it's defined is an uncomfortable state of mind when someone has contradictory values, attitudes, or perspectives about the same thing. The degree of discomfort varies with the subject matter, as well as how the person copes with self-contradiction. So this idea of cognitive dissonance is really what keeps a lot of people stuck in their drinking habits. To drink or not to drink, that is the question. And we've covered a lot of information in this program, and that was meant to give you some new knowledge and some new tools, because with new knowledge and positive emotion, that's where new behaviors can really stick, right? Can really be sustained. So we spent some time in this learning zone, or the K and A in ADKAR that we covered in the very first lesson. In that learning zone, so you're learning new tools, you're learning about how alcohol impacts your various body and your brain systems. And you've demonstrated the ability to not drink, right, during this course. So you spent time in that learning zone of the K and the A in the ADKAR model. And maybe you're starting to think like, okay, I got this, right? And no problem. I wanted to give you a little forewarning that those old hiking trails, as shows on the slide that we did in one of those other lessons, those neuro pathways, those are still there. And they are starting to grow over with some weeds, and not like the old hiking trails, but they can open back up very quickly. And alcohol does a really good job of killing all those weeds that are starting to grow over on those neural pathways. You have been building new habits and you've been building these new patterns, but it can be really easy to fall back into the old way of thinking and our old habits. It's also known as, I believe Alan Carr mentioned this as a term as like being the pitcher plant. I'm going to put that in the written portion of this lesson, so you can understand what the pitcher plant is all about. But I wanted to arm you with some additional learning, still in that K in the knowledge zone here for this course, and starting to think about just arm you with some more information about and to think about what comes next in the program for you. So if you are familiar, or if you're not familiar with the learning and habit change process, I want to walk you through this model just very quickly. It starts with the definition. It's a grid of consciousness on the y-axis and competence on the x-axis. So when you're in that bottom left-hand corner box, you are unconsciously incompetent. You don't know what you don't know, basically. When you move into box 2, you are consciously incompetent. You do know what you don't know. You're lacking some kind of skills, some kind of knowledge. You haven't tried new habits, right? But you haven't gotten there, right? You know that you're incompetent in this particular area. Box 3 is where you start to build some skills. So you start to build from 2 to 3 along the x-axis, some competencies, right? You pick up some new skills, some new techniques. We covered many of them in this course, like play the movie forward, like surfing the urge, and you are demonstrating your ability, the A in ADKAR, to not drink, right? So you are consciously competent at not drinking, right? You're squarely in box 3. Now, if you want sustained, lasting change, that's where we go into box 4, which is where you become unconsciously competent, where things are so natural, You're not thinking about drinking. You're not thinking about not drinking. It is just completely out of your thought processes. I describe my own experience as becoming liberated, not fixated on drinking. Once I took alcohol completely out of the equation, that going into box 4 was like the best thing I ever could have done. I became and have become unconsciously competent. I've also connected with my future self, and my future self is a non-drinker. And so at the time when I was kind of going through these thought processes, when you can really identify and kind of create this new version, your future self, that's what can help drive you into this box 4 of being unconsciously competent at this new identity, right? It's about, part of it is about identity change. If you want to identify as a non-drinker, what does that look like to you, right? And then you build the habits so it becomes part of your unconscious, your subconscious. So that's the framework. If this is your first try doing a dry January or a sober October or a dry challenge, you probably are sitting in box 3 right about now. And if you have fallen back into some old patterns, maybe you've been in box 3 before, right? And so you need to kind of start things over and really figure out where are you stuck and what is contributing to you being stuck. And actually, Annie Grace, you've met her in a prior lesson, author of This Naked Mind, gives a really good explanation of how people's thought patterns and behaviors can keep them stuck. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Annie for a moment, just for a couple minutes, quick little snapshot video from her.
There's really 3 layers of beliefs that we have that keep us stuck, right? And so the outermost layer is our beliefs about the substance. So alcohol itself. These beliefs sound like alcohol relaxes me, or alcohol helps me have a good time, or alcohol is fun, all of these things, like the reasons we give ourselves very consciously, very logically to drink. The alcohol experiment is going to tear down most, if not all, of those beliefs, right? At least give you some counter perspective to think about for all of those things. Then we have this deeper level of beliefs, which is our beliefs about society and the beliefs that society have given us. And these are really relational. So these sound like, am I going to fit in, right? Will I be able to get along with my partner as well as normal if I'm not drinking? Am I going to be invited? Like, will people stop inviting me? Like these sorts of fears that have to do with our society, that's a level down. And those are harder to overcome, but we have a lot of tools here, but there's also a lot of tools in our other programs, the 100 Days, The Path, that really dig into those. Now, the third layer of belief, and I believe that this, let me tell you how this sounds in your head. This sounds like, Annie, I know everything. I get it. I know that alcohol doesn't relax me. I know that it's not fun. I get it. I even have proven it to myself. And yet I keep doing it. I keep falling into the same cycles and same patterns. Why do I do it? I get it. I'm even willing to be, a little different in society. I'm willing to not drink and explain it away. I'm willing to do these things. And yet I keep falling into these same patterns and it makes no sense. If that's where you are, then what I think is that you are really stuck on that innermost layer of beliefs, which is the beliefs about ourself that we're numbing and we're trying to self-medicate away from instead of solving. So those for me sounded like, I'm not strong enough to get through the day if I, don't have my wine to look forward to at night, or I can't balance everything without this. I believe that alcohol was literally the duct tape that was keeping my whole life together. And so those beliefs sounded so much about my worthiness, about my strength, about my capability. They were very much centered on me, on self. And until I solved those, until I started to really do the work on those things, I was going to be looking for an escape from this mind of mine, because this mind of mine was not a peaceful place to be. It wasn't comfortable. And so I was always looking for self-medication. And even if I stopped drinking, I'd start smoking pot, or I'd, start overeating, or I'd do something else. So I'd take breaks from alcohol, replace it quickly with something else, and then come back and, still be in the same situation.
All right. Yeah. So these 3 layers of beliefs, I wanted to kind of pick up where Annie leaves off in this whole thought process, right? And I'm going to skip us over to what I'm calling the thought behavior loop, right? It's these beliefs. I'm going to walk you through this kind of loop here real quick and then give an example of how we can change our thought processes and our beliefs. Now, your beliefs are embedded in your subconscious, right? So it might take a little while to shine that light and figure out what this belief is. But your beliefs are what dictate your thoughts. Your thoughts create your emotions. Your emotions drive your behavior, and then the behavior fuels your beliefs or can create new beliefs based on your behaviors, right? So let's kind of see how this plays out. Say I have this belief, for example, that I have to be perfect, right? That's my belief. I have to be perfect. And then I make this tiny mistake at work. I get caught up in this. It's easy for me to get caught up in this negative cycle of thinking. A tiny mistake could then sound like, oh man, I really messed this up. I'm not smart enough to handle this, or I'm not smart enough to be successful at my job, or I'm never going to get that promotion, right? So it can start to go into this kind of downward spiral. And then that creates our emotions. So that emotion, if you're that example, maybe you're mad at yourself for making this mistake, you're upset, you're angry, you're disappointed, frustrated, anxious. And if we're choosing alcohol as the solution that is driving our behaviors in response to those bad emotions, those negative emotions, then that's where I wanted to spend this time here is to just consider when you're using alcohol to numb those emotions, it does work, right? It works as a temporary fix. Alcohol is a numbing agent. We've covered this in other lessons, right? So it will numb those negative thoughts for a while. So you grab the drink, then the anxiety, the anger, the stress goes away for a little while, but the underlying issue has not gone away. This underlying issue of the need to be perfect to get that promotion, that thought is still there. It's still embedded in your subconscious beliefs. So what happens is, say you play the movie forward here and you have had several glasses of wine or a bottle or whatever, you wake up the next morning and then you've got more negative beliefs piled on of, now I have a headache, and God, I can't get my drinking under control, and I guess I'll try again tomorrow, right? So that's how this whole cycle can loop and can be like a loop and self-perpetuate. So, and that's what can keep people really stuck in this cycle. But the truth is that the behavior doesn't change without changing those underlying beliefs. So let's play this whole loop again with a little bit of a different mindset. And this mindset is by changing one word. So my belief was I need to be perfect to get that promotion. If I change one word and I say I need to be competent, or maybe even so good that I'm I'm unconsciously competent, right? I've reached that level 4 box, but at least I need to be competent to get that promotion. You make a mistake, and instead of beating yourself up, you approach it with a growth mindset, a mindset of self-compassion, of curiosity, and you think, I haven't reached that 4th level, right? I am still learning. I'm still in that consciously competent box. I'm working on building my competencies. I'm still learning. Maybe it's going to take a little while. Maybe I need to ask for some help. I need to learn some new skills here. And with a growth mindset, you can stop these negative emotions from coming on in the first place. Without the negative emotions that would drive you to drink, then you're going to be much less inclined to drink that wine at the end of the day to soothe your stress or your anger or your frustration at yourself, right? So let's keep playing that movie forward, and you go home in a much more relaxed state. You haven't had anything to drink yet. Instead, you've got a growth mindset, and you decide, okay, I've still got stuff to learn. I'm going to call a colleague while I take a walk outside and listen to her explain whatever this competency is, right? So you take a walk outside, you're getting endorphins from a little bit of exercise, you're getting serotonin from the sunshine, you're building competencies and making a social connection. So you're feeding your social well-being all at the same time, and you haven't had a drink. So your ability then to go to bed that night, you've got some new knowledge. You have not fueled the belief that you're a terrible person and that you have to be perfect, right? You sleep well and you wake up the next morning thinking, okay, I need to learn some more things. I'm still working on it. And you have this ability then to go forward in a much more productive way. So in my experience, the hardest part of changing your relationship with alcohol is when people have started to use it as a tool to self-medicate, or a tool such as giving it a job in their life. And that's where the slippery slope is. I've mentioned the HALT plus BS, how the stress, when the S in the BS, if stress is one of your reasons for drinking, that's kind of where that slippery slope starts, right? And the hard part about this whole process of kicking alcohol to the curb is you've got to learn new ways to cope with your stress and take the job back from alcohol, right? You need to learn new life skills, essentially, to cope with these challenges in your life without grabbing the drink to self-medicate or to self-soothe. Otherwise, it's going to be very easy to just keep continuing in that thought behavior loop. For me, it's all about alignment. It's about living in true alignment with your strengths, your values, your authenticity, your authentic self, and where you can connect with that future self. If that future self is someone who doesn't need alcohol to self-medicate or to escape from a stressful job, that's the vision of the future that you really need to get clarity around. What does that future self look like? And that's really what I work with my clients on a one-on-one basis. Is we start to look at reaching new heights is the name of my signature coaching program, aligning your strengths, your core values, your beliefs, thoughts, behaviors, aligning all of that so you are living in congruency with your true authentic self. The self-awareness piece starts with Clifton Strengths that we did as part of this program. We also do a module on core values. Learn, so you're in the first 31 days of my 6-month program is this program. So you're in that learning module every day, learning with new knowledge and positive emotions. The inquiry is a deeply personal question of why are you drinking in the first place? Why do you not want to drink? And it's a deep dive into what might be holding you back from making sustainable changes. The growth mindset I just gave you an example of in the previous lesson is that you will have personal growth in ways that you've never imagined when you can start to untangle those subconscious beliefs and apply a growth mindset. And then namaste is the Sanskrit word for I bow to you. And that's the kind of the closure part of my program where you have built new habits, you've uncovered all these subconscious beliefs, you've reframed with a growth mindset, and you've built new habits that are sustained. I've designed this program. It's called Reach New Heights. You can see here is the link to it on my website. It's delivered over a 6-month process, and sometimes takes a little longer, and that's fine, but it's initially delivered. The first package is a 6-month program. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing the screen and just kind of leave you with those thoughts of, that was a lot of thoughts, actually, on the learning process, that thought behavior loop cycle, and then thinking about what to do next, because it is easy to fall back into old patterns if you're in that box 3, that consciously competent stage, and you, as Annie says, continue to do the work, right? That's really the key for sustained behavior change. So that's the end of today's lesson, and we'll see you back here, same channel.